All right, so you haven't done this page yet. Page 16 is the EOC review. So leave a couple pages for that and then skip over to page 17, which is what we're going to do now. We're doing factoring trinomials where the A is not going to be 1 like it was yesterday, where you just had x to the second power plus whatever, whatever, whatever. This time, there's a coefficient other than 1 that's in front of the x squared term. So there's a different way that you have to factor that. All right, so we have Q4. This is page 17. And the title of this page is Factoring Trinomials. So we're still factoring trinomials, but this is where your A, that first coefficient, is not 1. Okay? Yesterday we worked on where the A was 1. Today we're going to work on where A is not 1. Okay? And again, I'm going to show you as I go how to do these problems. Okay? I'm going to show you as I go. I'm going to explain the steps as I do one. So let's look at the first example. First example is 3p to the second power minus 2p minus 5. This is a trinomial. Pause. Okay, so this is a trinomial because it's 3 terms that's separated by a subtraction sign. Okay, so you have 3 terms. Okay, 1, 2, 3 terms. This trinomial is also a quadratic function because there's an x squared term. And the highest degree or the highest exponent in this whole polynomial is the x squared term. If there was another term that had to the third power, fourth power, fifth power, it would not be a quadratic function. Okay? The x squared term has to be the highest exponent. All right? In order for it to be a quadratic function. So let's look at how to factor this. The first thing that you notice is that there's a number up front, whereas yesterday there was not one. So the procedures are a little different. What we do is take the first and the last number and multiply them together. We multiply this together, that gives us a negative 15. So from there, we're going to draw the table like we did on yesterday. So this is negative 15 here. That's how we get this number. And we think, just like we did yesterday, what 2 numbers can be multiplied to give us a negative 15, but when you add them together and you get this middle number or this middle coefficient, which is a negative 2. So you get a sum that's negative 2. Yes. Okay, very good. We have a negative 3. Well, no, let's do positive 3 times a negative 5. Okay. So then when you add these together, you add 3 plus a negative 5. That gives you the negative 2. All right. And you could put this first and this second. It doesn't matter. But this is a positive 3. That's the only way to get a negative 15 when you multiply and to get a negative 2 when you add. Any questions about that? So now it's a little different from what we did on yesterday. We're going to take this middle term and break it down by using these 2 numbers right here. So we have, and it doesn't matter which one you write first, you can write the negative 5 first. Negative 5p plus 3p. That's going to give you this negative 2p here. Okay? And now all I do is just bring this down. Any questions about that? Okay. Now you have 4 terms. So now here you're going to factor by grouping. You're going to factor by grouping. Okay. So when you factor by grouping, what you're doing is finding the GCF for the first 2 terms and the GCF of the last two terms. Okay. What's the GCF of the first two terms? What's the greatest common factor between these two terms here? Nope. That's multiples. Factors. One what? What else do they have in common? They at least have one P in common. So it's going to be 1P or just P. That's my greatest common factor between these two terms. Okay. What number can be multiplied times this P to give me 3P squared? What can I multiply times P to give me 3P squared? 3P. Good job. Okay. P times 3P gives me 3P squared. What can I multiply times P to give me a negative 5P? Negative 5 or minus 5. So when I use distributive property and multiply this back out, I should get 3P squared minus 5P. And I do. So let's move on to this. What's going to be my greatest common factor between these two terms? 1. So I put plus 1 here. What can I multiply times 1 to give me 3P? And that's 3P. Good. What can I multiply times 1 to give me negative or minus 5? Negative or minus 5. Okay. So now what I notice, remember when we did factor by grouping? Now what I notice is these two terms here are being multiplied by the same binomial. P and a positive 1 are both being multiplied by the same number. So that means I can put these two numbers in a parentheses together, P plus 1, and have it multiplied times what they had in common, being multiplied by the 3P minus 5. And this is going to be my answer. Any questions about how I got this? Okay, how are we feeling? Are we okay? Is this easy, hard, medium? What are you feeling right now? Number 2, we got 2n to the second power plus 3n minus 9. Okay. All right, we're going to break this down. We're going to multiply the first and the last together, just like we did up here. And we're going to create the table. When we multiply this together, what do we get? Somebody said, I think, negative 18. Okay. And what are we going to write in this second column here? Sum of what? Positive 3. Just the 3, just the coefficient, okay? What two numbers can be multiplied together to give me a negative 18? And when you add them together, that gives you a positive 3. Okay? A positive 6 times a negative 3. Okay? Because positive 6 plus a negative 3 gives you a positive 3. All right? So we're going to break down this middle term. We have 6n and 3n. Okay? Negative 3n. Bring down the minus 9. Bring down the 2n squared. And this is positive, sorry. Any questions about that? Please look at it. Let me know if you have questions. Okay, good, Will. All right, so now what are we going to do here? We got 4 terms. How are we going to factor now? Factor by what? Okay. What is that called? Factor by what? Anybody remember? Starts with a G. Factor by grouping. So that means you're going to find the GCF of the first 2 terms and the GCF of the last 2 terms. Okay. What's the GCF of the first 2 terms, Jay? What's the GCF here? 2 what? 2n. Okay, they at least have one n in common. Okay, what can I multiply times this 2n to give me 2n squared? Anybody? We got n. Very good. 2n times 1n is going to give me 2n to the second power. What am I going to multiply times 2n, Usher, to give me 6n? What can I multiply times 2n to give me 6n? 3. So we got plus 3 here, okay? What's the GCF between these two terms here, Maggie? What's the GCF between these two terms? Anybody want to help her, Jackson? Negative, you said 3? All right. What can I multiply times negative 3 to give me a negative 3n? Anybody? N, great job. What can I multiply times a negative 3 to give me a negative 9? Say again, babe. Positive 3? Is that what you said? I don't know. I think this one said. All right, so that's what you get there. Now what am I going to do? How do I do this? All right, so since these two terms are being multiplied by the same binomial, I'm going to put these in parentheses together. This is 2n minus 3. And beside it, I'm going to put what they are both being multiplied by, n plus 3. Any questions about this? If I was to re-multiply this back out, I would get this trinomial up here. All right, let's see if you can do number 3 on your own. See what you get. Number 3. 3n to the second power minus 8n plus 4. See if you can do that on your own. All right, so the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to multiply the first and the last number together. When you multiply those together, that gives you the 12. This is positive 12. So now you make your table. You have positive 12. So you look for numbers that can be multiplied to give you a positive 12. And when you add them, you get a sum of the middle number, which is negative 8. So what numbers can be multiplied together to give you a positive 12? And when you add them, you get a negative 8. Anybody? Negative 6 and negative 2. Okay, so when you add negative 6 plus a negative 2, that gives you a negative 8. Any questions about that? Okay, all right, so you break down the middle number. Okay, and doesn't matter which one you write first. I can write the negative 2n first, then I can say minus the 6n. Bring down the plus 4 on this side, bring down the 3n squared on this side. This is 4 terms, so what's my next step going to be? Okay, you're going to factor by grouping. So that means you're going to find the GCF of the first two numbers and the GCF of the last two numbers, okay? What's the greatest common factor of these two terms here? What's the greatest common factor between these two terms? What else? N. They both have an N, at least one N in common. Okay? So what can you multiply times this n to give you this 3n squared? 3n, good job. N times 3n gives you 3n squared. What can you multiply times this n to give you this negative 2n? Negative 2. Okay. Now let's look at this one. What's the greatest common factor between these two terms? 2, okay. So when we take out a 2, what number can I multiply times 2 to give me a negative 6n? Hello? Negative 3n, good job. What can I multiply times 2 to give me 4? 2, positive 2. Now notice these are not the same. They are not the same. So in order to make them the same, the only thing that's different is the negative signs. So I'm going to take out a negative instead this time so that I can make them the same. So if I take out a negative from both of these, if I take out a negative, that's going to change this to a positive, and that's going to change this to a negative. It's going to change all my signs. So let's see if this still works. Negative 2 times a positive 3n gives me a negative 6n. That's true. Negative 2 times a negative 2 gives me a positive 4. That's true. So we're okay. So now, since these two terms are being multiplied by the same binomial, you can put them in a parentheses together, n minus 2. And beside it, you can put what they were both being multiplied by. And this is your answer. Any questions about that? Are you talking this line or the line before it? Okay, so here I use these two numbers right here and I put them here. It doesn't matter which one I write first or second. That's the point I was trying to show you. You could put 6n right here and 2n right here. It doesn't matter because if you take the sign with it, it's still going to be negative 8n. You're going to get the same answer regardless to which order you use. Are you okay with that? Okay. All right, guys, I want you to work on 4 and 5, and I'll come back on Thursday to see if you got these correct. Now I want you to work on your EOC review number 3. I am going to go ahead and give you the answers so you'll know what the correct answers are. I'm going to make the second part of the video, which is just going to show you how I got those answers, okay? Any questions? Yes, baby. If you didn't change the signs, yes. Let me pause real quickly. Okay, any last minute questions before I wrap up this video? Did you have a question, baby? So, you never change the signs, but it still be. Never change the signs, like, give me an example. What you mean? Oh, if you didn't take out the negative, then you didn't factor it completely. So it would be partial credit because you didn't factor it completely. All right, that's a good question. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video. I'm going to give you the answers to the EOC review number 3. Okay.